Marquee stuff here tonight at PPG Paints Arena. The LA Kings are in town to face one of the NHL's hottest teams. Not buying that, are you? Let's at least talk about it. Good morning to you. Good Tuesday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Penguins. It comes your way bright and early every weekday if you're into football and or baseball. I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Pirates that I hope you'll check out as well. The Penguins versus the Anze Kopitars is at 7:08 p.m. That's the face-off. I'm totally a Kopitar guy if you're new here. I just so enjoy watching him play. And to see him having another big season for the Kings, just continuing to score, to create, to defend, to do everything that he does is just a joy. But we're not talking about him. Maybe we will again later. I don't know. The Penguins themselves, I don't know how many people even realize this, are 6-2-1 in their last 9 games. That's going back to the 27th of November. In that span, the 38 goals that the Penguins have scored are number 1 in the NHL. 2 more than the Lightning Bolts. And in that span, it doesn't feel like it's really made much of an impression. You know, I mean, they had that winning streak, the 4 games, and they had a couple of stinkers in there. And of course, the 9-goal output in Montreal is going to do wonders for statistics like this within a specific time frame. But it also is the kind of thing that has me wondering, and I do this a lot, what would happen if this occurred in a different order? In other words, what would be the reaction if the Penguins had opened the season 6-2-1? Because the fact of the matter is, and this applies across the scope of professional sports, in a long season, you're going to have ups and you're going to have downs. You're going to have streaks and you're going to have slumps. The worst teams have streaks. The best teams have slumps. And to an extent, it's all about when you have either one that defines the perception of you. Now, I'm talking about the outside, but maybe that even applies to the inside as well. Would, for example, some of the issues that the Penguins had that became so exacerbated, all of those awful breakdowns, the 2-on-1s, the breakaways, the shorthanded goals, all that stuff, would that have just continued getting worse and worse and worse had the Penguins first established that maybe they're not so bad? You know what I'm saying? Maybe it snowballs for the better. This was Sidney Crosby yesterday after practice in Cranberry, talking about what he feels is behind the Penguins' unquestionably stronger play of late.
We're defending a little bit better and probably, able to get a little more zone time. So I think, defending better, getting out of there quicker allows us to have the puck a little bit more and allows us to play on the other team's end. So, there's probably a link between the two.
And he's right. You're not seeing those games other than the recent visit from the Stanley Cup champions where there's just a zillion shots, a zillion shot attempts, guys running free all over the rink. Maybe the game at Madison Square Garden that I covered where the Rangers were just allowed to do whatever, even though the Rangers are pretty much falling apart. That one's an exception as well. But for the most part, you haven't seen just the rampant breakdowns over the entire sheet of ice the way we did over the first 6 weeks of the season. We've also seen improvement in both sets of special teams, even the power play, although a lot of that's been from power play 2. Those goals count as well. Penalty killing's been fine. Goaltending's been better. It hasn't been, I wouldn't even necessarily call it good. And I don't just mean Tristan Jarry. I mean Alex Nedeljkovic as well. They've been kind of like, but is better than what it was. And all of this has happened, mind you, with neither Sid nor Yevgeny Malkin finding the net much this month. So if we're going to talk, and we do that a lot on this program, about who gets the blame, whether it's individually, whether works its way up to Mike Sullivan, whether it goes over his head to Kyle Dubas, I'm going to choose today to point out that, 6-2-1 is 6-2-1, and 38 goals are 38 goals. And better defensive metrics are better defensive metrics. And goaltending, we'll get there. I think Rickard Rakell's been a big part of this, an underappreciated part of this, and not just because Team Sweden left him off their Four Nations roster for some insane reason. I mean, underappreciated around here. Brian Rust has been, I think, underappreciated around here for a long time. Michael Bunting and Blake Lizotte have provided offense consistently through this stretch. Phil Tomasino's had a welcome arrival. Chris Letang and Erik Karlsson have both picked up their games. They'll both occasionally make you a little bit batty, but they've been much, much better than where they were for the first 6 weeks. And I feel like it's fair to give credit to Marcus Pettersson, too, although over the weekend in Ottawa, he injured his lower leg. Sullivan said yesterday he's going to be out week to week. That's never a great prognosis. It usually means about a month, and it usually means that something's been broken. But he's also been part of this, and now one of the many challenges that they face in attempting to sustain this little surge is replacing a really, really difficult player to replace, especially, on this team where there isn't a whole lot of what it is that he does. And on that note, I'll point out that the person assigned to take his place was Matt Grzelcyk, so it's all going to fall apart beginning tonight, right? When we come back, J1Q. This episode is brought to you by Bet Online, your number one source for all your summer sports needs this season, from Major League Baseball, golf, NHL, NBA playoffs. Get the latest odds and lines, including all team matchups, player props, odds on just about everything that's out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Bet Online, where the game starts.
Abandon ship, Bob. Sell the team. Are you a Pirates fan who is angry or apathetic about our perennial losing baseball team? Do you feel helpless because you don't know how to make a difference? Well, good news. We have something you can do about it. Join our Sell the Team movement. We're a group of passionate fans voicing our frustration and demanding change through billboard campaigns, press outreach, protests, and involvement at local city government meetings. Go to ourteamnothis.com to get involved.
Today's J1Q comes from Victor in Langley, British Columbia. DK, maybe it's just me, but I feel like the vision of Kyle Dubas, meaning the players that he's picked up, and Mike Sullivan's game in his mind are on two different paths, two different visions. Am I looking too deeply into this, or is that it? Well, Vic, it is it, I think, at times. I can't state that as definitively as I could say back when Jim Rutherford brought Ryan Reeves in and Sullivan wouldn't even dress him. I mean, I thought that was pretty glaring, Your future Hall of Fame general manager is bringing you a guy that he just gave up a first-round pick for, and you say, no thanks. I don't really have any use for that type of player. That's when you don't just have different visions, you have different methodologies for communicating all around. But with this current group, I don't see communication as being a thing. You have Sullivan and Dubas constantly in touch with each other by every accounting, although Sullivan will tell Dubas, and he's done that as recently as this past summer, you don't have to run these things past me and whatever. And Dubas was joking about this recently, but he'll do it anyway because he wants to make sure that the player that he brings in is going to be somebody who does get utilized and does meet the coach's vision, to borrow your term, for what would constitute a good fit in Pittsburgh. Now, from there, you can take this discussion and cite example A or example B or example C of where, wow, no, these things don't line up at all. I'm sure that's true to an extent everywhere, in every setting. You don't have any such thing in the NHL as a coach/GM. You don't have anywhere where it's a single person, and that's very much to be understood. The jobs today are much, much, much different than what they used to be in the past. So it's bound to happen to an extent. But the one area in which this would really leap to the forefront would be the physical play, because Sullivan has a different definition of what he considers to be the physical play that he craves, meaning different from most people and possibly different from Dubas's. My own issue with this topic, and the reason that I brought it up again on yesterday's show, and I know that's what you're referencing, is that I think the definition needs to change, not that the communication needs to improve. I think there needs to be an understanding that this team's lack of energy, lack of fire, lack of having anybody light things up a little bit since Jason Zucker was trying to do it all by himself. He's not a bigger dude, but he would have that type of needle movement to his game. Before that, obviously, Brandon Tanev. And before that, there were quite a few guys that fit into that category. Chiefly Patrick Hornqvist. You must have this. You can't, and this is one reason, if it sounds like I unfairly pick on Noel Acciari, it's because Acciari was supposed to be one of these types of guys, and he's not, at all. Matt Nieto was supposed to be one of these types of guys, and he's not at all. And I really feel like that's the thing that's got to change. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Penguins. We're going to do another one of these tomorrow.